right, welcome back to The Sound Seat. And today I'm excited to be joined by one of South Africa's most visionary young directors, Lindo Langa. Known for his emotive storytelling and dynamic visuals, Lindo made waves as second unit director on Netflix's Queen Sono at just 23 and has directed incredible commercials for brands, as well as even a Trevor Noah tourism advert for South Africa. And he's made incredible music videos for top artists like Shoma Jozi, aka Ami Faku, Anati, and Black Coffee. We will dig into his creative process, his inspirations and his challenges, and his journey of bringing cinematic wonder into every frame. Lindo, we are so excited to have you in the sound seat. So welcome.
Thank you so much. It's so cool to be here.
Great. I'm so glad to have you here. All right. So you have mentioned numerous times about your early inspirations, and you've mentioned films like Star Wars, Ghostbusters, Goodfellas, and Singing in the Rain, which are just the most incredible array of movies. How did these early cinematic memories shape your visual language as a director?
You start off, because when my mom had me, she went straight back to work. So we grew up on VHSs and things. And that just sort of bakes into your brain. I think I gained consciousness whilst watching Star Wars. So it's so it kind of bakes into your brain a little bit. And that knowledge or that language stays dormant in you until you actually have to use it. And I think it shaped me because that's just how I saw the world. I saw it in that lens of that golden age of cinema. I saw things in that way. And fast forward, you get to film school, and firstly, I went to film school because I wasn't good at anything else. I wasn't particularly good with numbers, or I always loved language and writing and the prose and stuff. And then you get to film school, and then you direct for the first time, and it just makes sense. And you realize all those years of watching films and being film literate and all that stuff kind of comes through quite seamlessly. And then you start, because it's how you see the world, it's the only way you know how to shoot. And oftentimes I'm directing from a place of, yes, emotion, but also a place of energy and kineticism and having a distinct sense of a rhythmic element to everything I do. And that's very much a thing that the old guys used to do as well. So really, in everything I touch or everything I try to sort of put myself into, I always infuse it with that love of those old films. And even just I think we are going through a renaissance or a return to that. If you're looking at what's popular now, there's a bit of a rejection of these big tentpole comic book movies, and you're kind of going back into more sincere, more honest and straightforward types of storytelling, which is something that I don't know, it just imprinted on me, and I think it shaped me since then. Every time we're framing up, I'm referencing something, and there's something cool to me about being in dialogue with all my favorite films, whether it's a framing or a line or however you put it. I put a lot of Easter eggs, even if it's just for me, because I love this thing so much.
Yeah. I think it's so true, because there's lots of things that we watch nowadays that are fleeting. But I remember going to my dad every second weekend, and he would fetch us after school on a Friday, and we would go straight to the video store, take out videos, VHS for the weekend. And I mean, all of those films that you mentioned were all in there, and it has stayed with me. So this going back, and it's also amazing to see not only our sort of era enjoying going back, but a younger generation also enjoying this older way of embracing things and embracing vinyl and all of that sort of thing. So it's beautiful to see, and it's beautiful to see that you putting that into your work.
Yeah, I love it. I love it so much, yeah.
At 23, directing on Queen Sono, tell us a little bit about that experience and what it taught you about storytelling.
So that was my first time on a big set. And initially I was there to just fill in the blanks, wide shots and stuff like that. But what it ends up being is you're on set and Debocha Malope is like, hey, I need a second camera to shoot these things and this specific stuff. And then you're on there with him and you're seeing him work. And I learned that it's really expensive, firstly, for making music. Because when you walk onto a set like that, every single thing is a line item. Everyone is a line item.
Yeah.
And then you think of like, well, everyone here is getting paid. Everyone here is feeding their families. And so you realize you have to almost be frugal with how you tell the story. And you think, okay, I'm on a big set, I can do all this cool stuff. It's like, no, the jib is for 2 days.
Yeah.
And the jib is only for those guys. And you can't use the jib. So it's like you learn to be economical. But from a storytelling perspective, almost every scene that I shot didn't have dialogue. It was almost always a big establisher or a sequence where we're following cars around the city. So it's like, how do you tell a story without dialogue? And also, it can't be too long in the show because the sequence takes place. All I'm shooting is taking this character from point A to point B where they get ambushed and have the big fight scene.
Sure.
You're just taking them there. So it's like, how do you tell that story in 40 seconds? Because in the edit, you have to have the time for the fight scene, which is the exciting thing. No one's watching the cars moving for that long. So that's when you figure out, like, we're just bricklayers. Like, we're helping the overall vision. And getting to watch Debocha and Kagiso direct that and do the actual performance stuff and seeing, like, people act for the first time, like, out of film school and stuff, really teaches you that this thing is actually a team sport. But it's also, like, as much as it's a team sport, there's always a financial, like, in the back of your head, like, the problems aren't the same. I mean, I'd left film school the previous year or 2 years prior, running out of time in the day, panicking when the sun goes down, not having, like, some of the gear that you thought you'd need. Or you thought, and, like, you're watching these huge productions have similar problems where it's like, but you have all the money. Like, but it's like, no, but we also, we have to get the locations. And so there's that kind of, you realize that no matter the scale or the size, it's actually always the same thing. And it's always the same feeling when you get the shot. And it's always the same thing when there's no difference for me, getting the shot at the right light in the last moment of the day on a massive set like Queen Sono or with my friends in film school. Like, the feeling is exactly the same. And I figured that, like, that's the feeling we're consistently chasing always. And I think that's really cool.
Amazing. Let's just backtrack a little bit because you've just said that you were basically out of film school. And I know that there's lots of aspiring young directors that are either sitting at home or at film school. How did you manage to get onto this shoot, onto Queen Sono? Like, what was that process? Because I know that, like, I get so many emails from aspiring sound engineers, and I'm sure that, there's, like, all of these film houses are getting tons of emails from aspiring directors. So how did you manage to make this happen?
So I was really lucky. In my third year, the 2 films I made traveled quite a lot, and they did fairly well on the festival circuit. So I got a chance to connect with a lot of filmmakers like that on the internet and stuff, and then there was also, in my year, the top films got put on Showmax. So I was in a position to be able to say, hey, please watch my film on Showmax to people. And then it's like, what do you mean? You're in film school. So, like, those little things helped a lot. But the biggest thing was it is a networking thing. And I think it's sending the email is one thing, but it's very different when you can sit across from someone and tell them what you're about. And sometimes people hire you or pick you up because of who you are, not because of what you've done. And I met Kagiso Lediga at a bar in Durban, and we walked up to him and we said, hey, we've just made these 2 films. Please watch them in your own time, kind of thing. He's like, I'll watch them right now. And he sat there and he watched my shorts and he offered me a job on the spot. And he basically was like, yo, someone will call you Monday and we'll get you to job and we've got some stuff cooking. And the first thing I did with them was a very small sketch comedy show for Comedy Central. And it was a pilot, really. And we shot over 2 days. And I remember it was quite a whirlwind, like, and that's where you meet crew, and that's where you meet all these people, and then now it's my first time working in Joburg, and so all my friends are suddenly comedians, and I'm still like the youngest person amongst them, because everyone's like, I've been doing this for 20 years, and then so we made that, and I was thinking, okay, cool, I'm going to stay in Joburg until we shoot the season of television. Yeah. That's going to be it, and then we never got, like, I never heard back from them, and it's like, oh my goodness, like, are we not? And I'm like, I'm in Joburg, I have no money, I'm living on people's couches, and I go back to Durban and thinking, like, this is my life now. My father passed away 2019, and that week we buried him on the Saturday, and on the Sunday I'm like, okay, I'm living at home with my mom, I can't leave her alone. Yeah. And that Sunday I get the call from Kagiso's people, and like, hey, we've got this Netflix show, we're starting in 2 weeks, we need you in a week to be in Joburg. And my mom was like, you gotta go. Like, that's totally the thing that's gonna change your life. And then I went, and suddenly, even on the days that I wasn't shooting, I would just be around. And then it started being a thing of like, that guy's always here. What does he do? Oh, he's second unit. Okay, can he actually pick these scenes up? And can he? And then and then you realize that, okay, well, I don't know how to shoot a TV show yet, but I know how to shoot a scene. So let me just shoot the scene to the best of my abilities, and it works. And it's like, okay, we need these things from you now. I was initially going to be there for like 4 days. I ended up being there for like like a great deal longer. And it was really, it was quite an experience. And just being able to be embedded in that space and learning and picking all that stuff up from those guys was really, really incredible. And just being able to be included and called and thought of after doing one thing with them. And that's pretty much been the story, like, consistently. Like, you do one thing with someone and then they come back. And Queen Sona was quite a massive experience, a learning experience for me, just to see how things are really done. And obviously you use that to pivot into the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. Yeah.
Can we chat a little bit about a personal thing, in the fact that you buried your dad, and then, I mean, a week is not enough time to mourn.
No.
And you then rushing to Joburg. And I think that a massive thing in many industries is that we never really get time to grieve or time for ourselves, because we're under this massive pressure, because if we don't do this job, we don't actually know if there's going to be another job.
Yeah.
And so how was that experience for you? I mean, I suppose if it's very busy, it's helpful, but pushing those actual feelings aside is not healthy either.
No.
So tell us a little bit about, if you will, tell us a little bit about that, period.
It was really strange. Like, that week it's quite surreal. And then, like, literally on the Sunday, the day after the funeral, it's like there's still people around and stuff. And so, like, you're still in a weird space. But the thing is, like, I think you never are given the opportunity. Like, I never got the opportunity for my dad to see my work, really. He only saw my film school stuff, so he never really got a chance to see, like, what I could do. But you also have to, at every given moment, he gave everything to make sure that I would be able to do the thing I loved. And it was really crazy, actually. It was like one of my last days on set. I told the writers and the guys at Queen Sona, and Milo, he was one of the writers, and Kagi, and we were all like having like dinner or whatever afterwards, and I told Milo, like, hey, but this is what happened. This is the story of how I got here. And he stopped the whole table and wanted to toast to my dad. Like, that's the kind of energy of those guys. And they were really amazing filmmakers who led with their hearts. And so they never let you forget that, like, hey, like, we're here for you, and this is the kind of environment that you're in. I think oftentimes we can find ourselves, when you're busy can become toxic. But I've never been in a toxic work environment. And I think that helped a lot. And the ability to be able to start providing for my mom and helping out at home and stuff, like, that's what I realized very early on, that whatever resources you get from filmmaking, you need to buy time with that. And everyone I've ever worked with and for and around has always been like, you need to go home and see your mom. And like, so because I make it quite clear that, hey, like, I'm from Durban. Like, I need to go home and see mom. And everybody always says, okay, oh, you got to go after the job. You got to go. So it's, as much as it was intense, I always had gaps to be emotional, and I always had time to go home. Whilst shooting Queen Sona, I would take the bus back to Durban, see my mom, and then wait for the call sheet for the next day. And if the call sheet came out like 6 p.m., I'd take the 10 p.m. bus to Joburg, walk to their offices from Park Station to Braamfontein, and then go to shoot, and then see if I'm shooting again the next day. If I'm not, I take the 10 p.m. bus home. So it's like, that's how I was living.
Okay.
And so I had ample time to reflect, but I also had ample time to be with my mom still.
Yeah.
That 10 p.m. bus is like, like I know that route perfectly now. And stopping in Pietermaritzburg, my brother would fetch me and then we'd go home. Like that's at like 4 or 5 a.m.
Yeah.
And that's what really, I had a lot of time to think, and I had a lot of time to reflect, and a lot of time to be grateful also. Like, and sometimes that bus isn't there, right? And sometimes it's full. If you get the call sheet at 7 p.m., the bus is full. You have to take the weird off-kilter buses, and you travel up to Joburg with an Ethiopian soccer team, and
amazing stories there in its own.
On its
right,
own,
yeah.
and so and that's when you think like, okay, like we're doing this, and so I did have a lot of time and a lot of space and a lot of like moments to be able to be grateful and reflect and mourn properly. And even after the show was finished, I think they were left with like a week or two left, and I just hung around. Like, even after the show was finished shooting, like I had my time.
Yeah.
So that was really cool, and the team and everybody since then who I've worked with has always been really great and mindful, and they understand that I'm at my best when I'm able to go home as often as possible and stuff. So yeah, I've been really lucky to work with people who've accommodated those moments in my life.
Yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful. And also I was just thinking, because I also used to travel that exact same route every second weekend. My dad lived in Durban, and my parents lived in Pretoria, and my mom. And as a tall guy in that bus, you
terrible.
must have had lots of time to think.
Oof.
You weren't really sleeping.
You can't sleep,
no. So you did have time to reflect. And I'm sure that your dad completely knows how beautiful the work is that you are busy doing. And it's just a beautiful reflection on how he supported you, which is really wonderful. You chatted about those little scenes of like 35 to 40 seconds of, with no audio, etc. And I suppose, in a sense, making a commercial, you're telling an entire brand story within 30 to 60 seconds. Give us a little bit of perspective in terms of how you get that brief, you've won the pitch, and how you want to tell that story.
So sometimes it's really hard. Commercial filmmaking is really hard for me because I get really excited over everything around the brand, and then you gotta have the brand stuff. You gotta. And sometimes I use commercials as a vehicle to just test out things that I see in my head. Oftentimes, what happens is the brief is really strong, and everyone knows what they want to say, what the brand wants to say. My approach usually is, what's my first idea, and then I just do the opposite of that. Because it's like my first idea is probably the least interesting, but if I do the opposite, maybe and sometimes it backfires, but most times I find that a brand or an agency never wants you to pitch back what they gave to you, and the things that I put into a brief or the things that I put into any commercial usually are grounded in cinema, and it's usually something inspired by one of my favorite films or a film that I've recently seen or something, and I try my best to recontextualize into the world of the brand. And just because sometimes there's a packet of chips in the beginning, it doesn't mean that it's any different from Last Night in Soho or Singing in the Rain or whatever the inspiration was for the thing. Sometimes it's like, it just so happens to be a scene from that movie how I would have imagined it, just with the girls holding a packet of chips in it. And that's something that you never say to the agency because everyone gets a little bit nervous about it. But at the end of the day, that's what it is. Because the thing is, we may be watching things differently, But at the end of the day, if I put on a Hitchcock film in the house, I'm going to be engaged. And that's 60, 70 years old. And oftentimes I say, like, because agencies are starting to do this thing where they get more and more complex in their writing of the scripts. It's like we transition to this, and it's like sometimes it can just be a cut. Sometimes you can dissolve to the next thing. Like, if it's good enough for Hitchcock, like, it's good enough for us. Like, we don't have to do fancy, crazy things all the time. Sometimes simplicity is best in storytelling. And I often find myself returning back to, like, more classical ways of doing things because it's just simpler and it's easier to comprehend. I have 30 seconds to tell the story.
Yeah.
Comprehension is probably the thing that I'm focusing the most on right now, is ensuring that oftentimes we watch so much content and we're bombarded with so much stuff that's meant to be consumed that we don't make things that are meant to be watched anymore. Yeah. And so it's like, I'm just consuming this commercial. But, like, sometimes it's like simplicity takes you there. The audience knows you can do anything now. It's about what you don't do that matters. And that there's a level of restraint that I'm, like, imbuing my work with now, because I've done the cool, crazy stuff. Like, I want to go into something, like, into a bit more restraint, because I feel that that's so much more engaging and that's so much more interesting to an audience that's so used to flicking through their screen so quickly that suddenly when you watch something where it forces you to look at it and stop and take it in, suddenly it's like so much more engaging, so much more interesting. And so that's oftentimes after the brief has been won, or even when the briefs come in, like, that's where I'm starting to create from, is instead of producing, I'm reducing. Like, I'm taking things away and, like, and I'm trying to figure out how is this thing the simplest and the best it can be. And I find that, like, all the directors I look up to, they keep it so simple. Spielberg, Greg Gray, like, all the guys who are, like, I look at their work and, like, what? Like, it's so simple. They're never doing anything complicated from a visual perspective, because I think they've done it already. But also, it's like, I'm making a story to be comprehended and understood and loved. And you can't love what you don't understand. And so I think that's kind of where I'm going. And I find that my favorite work that I've made is, like, my favorite works that I've made are really simple and complicated to achieve from a logistical point of view and everything else. But when you watch the thing, it's, like, really simple. And I think there's power in that. You know, everything's getting more and more complicated. And I think going the other way we might loop all the way back around to those, like, early 2000s, 2010s commercials where it's like the idea is so simple and so strong that the brand is memorable by, like, virtue of that.
Totally.
And I think that's really cool.
Yeah. I mean, a Cremora ad just popped into my head where it was the guy standing in front of a fridge.
Yeah,
and that's it. Talking to his wife. And it's not inside, it's on top. I mean, oh my God. I can't even remember when that came out. I know I was little. And it's so simple. And I think that we have so much overload of information that making something super striking and just very simple is like almost we can suddenly breathe and slow down. And obviously this is the sound seat, so I have to ask you a quick music question. You've done music videos. Tell me quickly about your process there, because often a music writer, an artist, will write a song and have specific meaning, but you can listen to the song and have a totally different meaning. So how do you work with an artist in terms of coming up with how you're going to do their music video?
Usually it's like artists are always they operate on, like, either they're very specific about what they want or they have no idea what they want. And it's just make it cool. But I think what's really cool about music videos is when an artist has a clear vision, a good artist understands to collaborate on it, you know, and say, I want to achieve this, but I need you to help me do it like this, you know, and so oftentimes, like, music videos are completely a labor of love. Like, that's not a thing we do for money, or it's not a thing we really do for you know, for anything other than I just love to shoot and this is a great song. And I just shot a music video now, and sitting with the artist, I realized that there's nothing I could shoot that the song can't do on its own. Like, a music video doesn't make a hit, it's the other way around. And so, you know, when oftentimes like it's like, what do I see in my head, and then like how does it work, and I'm musically inclined. I've been playing guitar for like 10 years now, so I know like a little bit about like musicality, and I can hear different things, and sometimes when you listen, like you hear the synth and you hear how it pans, and you hear, and so like, you know, having a intimate knowledge of like just production helps a lot, because you can attribute sounds to images. So if the music does something interesting, then I know that I can do that. And that's how I handle sound as well for commercials and TV and stuff. But often I let the music lead, and if the artist has specific imagery, I usually find a way to incorporate it somehow. But oftentimes, like, I let the music lead, and it's usually actually almost always, it's never starts with a story. It almost always starts with like, well, this is what the music is doing, so this is what the camera should do to help that. So you almost let the music dictate where I should go, and then in the moves, and then I think, what do I see? And then so I go like the other way. I don't think about story. I think about the visuals first, because the song is the story. The visuals just have to either be an abstraction of that, or like an affirmation of the ideas in the song. And that's really worked. And sometimes it's like you want to create something like that's new for the artist also. Like a lot of the times when I do a music video, it's the most different thing that the artist has done, because the music video market is so saturated with, it's very small. Firstly, there's very few directors who work in that market consistently all the time, and they all work with each other, and they all kind of make similar work because it's what's achievable and what's around. And then oftentimes artists come to me when they want something a little bit different, and I bear that in mind. So I look at what you've done in the past and go, okay, well, we're doing the opposite of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, like, and that opposite rule helps so much, because it's like, we're not going to do that. And then it's like, oof, this is so different, but okay, cool. And it's generally always a great experience. Like, it's always really fun. And as soon as you start letting the music lead, it becomes so much easier. You treat it like a score, and it just becomes so much easier to see the images. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we're ending there, because that's just so beautiful, and it is exactly that. It's how you would, how you would visually feel that song. So that's amazing. Thank you so much. This has been incredible. Thank you, and thank you for being here. It's really a privilege to have you.
No, thank you for having me, guys.
Lindo.
This is so cool. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you.